Know our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Candidates in the presidential election of September 7 and their representatives started their election campaign on Thursday, during which they will have to explain their programs and convince voters to vote in their favor with a view to consolidating the internal front and boosting economic development. The Zionist occupation army today ordered the evacuation of new neighborhoods north of Khan Yunis and east of Deir al-Balah in the southern and central Gaza Strip, respectively. And the president of the State of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, has stressed in the Turkish capital, Ankara, the importance of the international community compelling the Zionist entity to comply with the resolutions of international legitimacy and international law. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. Good afternoon. First, the president of the Higher Youth Council, Mustafa Hidawi, has said in the province of Saida that the presidential election of September 7 represents a noble national mission requiring the massive participation of young people to preserve the gains made. Presiding over the Saida Youth Forum organized by the Higher Youth Council at the Morsli Mohammed National Specialized Institute in the Weld Khalid municipality, Mustafa Hidawi underlined that the forthcoming presidential election is a noble national mission requiring the participation of youth people or young people in force, with a view to preserving the gains made in recent years and pursuing achievements in various areas of development. The same speaker underlined that our duty at the present time is to rally around this national mission, which calls on us to express our votes strongly and massively and effectively at the ballot box. In this respect, Mr. Hidawi called on young people to work to promote democratic and electoral action by also helping to raise awareness among citizens, both men and women, of the importance of participating in this electoral right. In an interview with Algerian television, the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, has spoken of two key stages in the national struggle against the colonial forces, the North Constantinois Offensive and the Sommam Congress, according to a press release issued by the Upper House of Parliament. On the eve of the celebration of National Mujahid or War Veteran Day, marking the double anniversary of the North Constantinois Offensive and the Sommam Congress, 20 August 1955 and 1956, respectively, Salah Goujil gave an overview of these two key stages in the national struggle against the colonial forces. The chairman of the Council of the Nation harked back to the impact and revolutionary scope of the North Constantinois Offensive, the first pivotal event after the outbreak of the glorious November Revolution, the same source added. Mujahid Salah Goujil also spoke of the circumstances in which the Sommam Congress was held, recalling its objectives and factors for success as the first stage in assessing the national struggle 2 years after the outbreak of the revolution. In this respect, he paid tribute to the sacrifices made by the Algerian people during the revolution and hailed the victories achieved. The member of the Council of the Nation and of the Coalition of Arab Women Parliamentarians Against Violence on Women or Against Women, Wara Jafar, has taken part via video conference in a meeting on ways of developing cooperation between women parliamentarians from the Middle East, the Gulf, and Europe to tackle Islamophobia and extremism, according to a press release from the Upper House of the Lower House of Parliament. More in this report with our colleague Saeed Bouazi.
During the meeting, Mr. Jafar stated that the rise of Islamophobia and extreme right-wing movements constitutes a threat to global stability in that it fuels hatred, racism, and discrimination against Muslim communities, with all that this entails in terms of altering the image of Islam in the collective consciousness of the West. To counter this rise in violent extremism in Europe, the media discourse must change, and the role of women parliamentarians in dealing with this phenomenon must be strengthened, said the senator, advocating to this end the drafting of laws encouraging cultural and religious pluralism and criminalizing hate speech and tougher penalties against right-wing extremism, while ensuring, she said, that parliaments are not used as forums for racist political discourse inciting hatred of others. On this occasion, Noura Sadia Jafar stressed the need to put in place policies to protect Muslim women against violence and discrimination and to develop educational programs that instill respect for cultural diversity and promote a culture of coexistence in order to build a common future.
And in the ongoing cycle of Zionist violence against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, a Palestinian youth was killed yesterday evening during an incursion by Zionist settlers into a village east of the town of Qalqiliyah, while several other Palestinians were injured, reports the Wafa agency. More again with our colleague Saad Bouazi.
The young Palestinian aged 23 was shot dead during an incursion by Zionist settlers into the village of Jait, who opened fire on him and wounded another Palestinian. In El Khalil, the Zionist occupying forces attacked several villages and entered houses, notably in the Wadi Nasri and Jabr valleys, kidnapping women and children, explains Wafa. In occupied El Quds, clashes took place yesterday evening between Zionist occupation forces who used live ammunition and sound bombs and young Palestinians in the Shufat refugee camp north of the holy city. According to the Palestinian Prisoners Club, 94 journalists, including women, are currently being held in the jails of the Zionist entity since the start of the aggression against the Gaza Strip on 7th October. Moreover, the Wall and Settlement Resistance Commission has reported that Zionist occupation forces and settlers have deliberately started 273 fires targeting Palestinian land and property since October 7, 2023. Muayyad Shaban, the head of the commission, stated that the Zionist occupation military and settlers have used the cover of the ongoing aggression by the occupying state to commit numerous crimes, with fires being a prominent method. He said that these actions reflect a clear attempt to perpetuate state-sponsored terrorism by terrorizing civilians and destroying their property, aiming to force a large-scale displacement and confine the Palestinian population to isolated, besieged enclaves.
And in the early hours of today, several Palestinian civilians were killed and others injured as a result of Zionist aerial and artillery strikes, along with gunfire from occupation forces targeting various areas across the besieged Gaza Strip. According to correspondents, medics recovered the bodies of 5 individuals from the families of Abu al-Wahid and al-Khur and treated 8 injuries after Zionist forces shelled an apartment in the Al-Daraj neighborhood of Gaza City. The spokesman for the Palestinian presidency, Nabil Abu Rudaina, has warned that the continuing Zionist escalation in occupied Palestine, notably the daily massacres in the war-torn Gaza Strip, risks further inflaming the entire region, Wafa News Agency reported. Saad Bouazi again.
Nabil Abu Rudaina said in the wake of the increase in Zionist attacks and crimes in the occupied Palestinian territories that the American administration, which provides all forms of support to the Zionist occupier in its aggression against the Palestinian people, is well aware that the occupation is seeking to inflame the entire region in order to ensure its political survival. Abu Rudaina underlined that Washington must understand that the occupation must immediately cease its actions and must force it to put an end to its aggression and destructive policies if it really wants to spare the region from the scourge of wars, the price of which will be paid by the whole world, not just the region. The presidential spokesman also underlined that the occupation, for its part, must be aware that the daily policy of massacres, murders, destruction, arrests, settlements, and attacks on Islamic and Christian holy places will not bring it security and stability. The only way to achieve peace and stability is to recognize the rights of the Palestinian people and to implement the decisions taken within the framework of international legitimacy, he added.
And the President of the State of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, has stressed in the Turkish capital Ankara the importance of the international community compelling the Zionist entity to comply with the resolutions of the international legitimacy and international law by implementing the decisions of international courts, notably those of the International Court of Justice, ICJ, relating to the occupation Palestinian territories. During a bilateral meeting with his Turkish counterpart, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, at the Presidential Palace in the Turkish capital, President Abbas briefed the Turkish head of state on the latest developments in the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories and the ongoing aggression against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, including occupied Al-Quds. And candidates in the presidential election of September 7 and their representatives kicked off their election campaign on Thursday, during which they will have to explain their programs and convince the electorate to vote in their favor with a view to consolidating the internal front and boosting economic developments. More in this report by our colleague Saad Bouazi.
Speaking on the Expression Direct program broadcast by the audiovisual media, the independent candidate Abdelmajid Tebboune reaffirmed his determination to pursue social policy by supporting vulnerable groups, increasing the purchasing power, and strengthening all aspects of economic development in all its aspects. He pledged to pursue the achievements in the economic and financial aspects while pursuing the policy of support for young people, the preservation of the social character of the state, mentioning in this connection the recovery of misappropriated funds, increasing salaries to reach 100% by 2027, and the revaluation of retirement pensions, as well as the completion of all types of housing projects. He also maintained that he would continue the fight against the various scourges, including corruption, and pledged to continue reducing the rate of inflation in addition to revising the municipal and provincial codes and reviewing the administrative division. For his part, the candidate of the Movement of the Society for Peace, MSP, Abdelali Hassani Sharif, began his election campaign in the capital, where he stressed the need to contribute to the success of this electoral event in order to preserve the country, its sovereignty, and its unity. To this end, he made a symbolic stop in front of the headquarters of the movement to announce the official launch of his campaign, while recalling the slogan of his electoral campaign, Opportunity, which he said represented an opportunity for all Algerians to bring about change. He then visited a number of symbolic sites, including the house of the late Mujahid Ilyas Derish, a member of the Group of 22, and the Martyrs Sanctuary, then the place of the freedom of expression, underlining that his program guarantees the protection of political, trade union, and associative freedoms, as well as individual freedoms. For his part, the candidate of the Socialist Forces Front FFS, Youssef Aouchiche, said in Algiers that the building of a strong state and the citizen-state trust was the priority of his electoral program. At a community event held on the first day of the election campaign, Youssef Aouchiche underlined that the objective he aspired to achieve through his candidacy was to lay the foundations of a strong state and to strengthen confidence between Algerians and the institutions of the state. If elected to the country's highest office, he pledged to work to rehabilitate the middle classes and strengthen the purchasing power and to revise the guaranteed minimum national wage.
That's the end of the news bulletin. Time now for our weekly program. Let's meet tomorrow for another edition of our news bulletin. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to In Conversation with Hannah Delil. The best way to discover a country is to know more about its people and most of all about its arts. And today we have the honor as a guest, musician, composer and singer, conductor and arranger, Safi Boutella. Safi Boutella, hello, and thank you for joining us on Radio Algeria International.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here.
Thank
you very much for inviting me.
It's a real pleasure, and it's a way for us to know more about you and your career, as it is also a way to know more about Algeria and art in Algeria, because you, in more than 30 years of artistic career, you were one of the most important defender of the Algerian music on international scenes, and your compositions or your arrangement you did to so many artists, your touch that you gave to so many movies be they Algerians or Europeans like French movies and Italians and so many others. It's the Algerian touch of your soul, shall we say. But first of all, we'd just like to know, how did you get to music? What were your influences when you were a child, or maybe a little later?
Quite easy actually, because my father used to be military.
Yes.
In the Algerian army, and before actually also in the French army. That's Algerian history.
History indeed,
and,
yes.
He was a big listener and either a singer, and he used to sing us melodies from Beethoven or Mozart or Kulthum or whoever, or Yves Montand, or such musics that in the 50s and the 60s.
Yes.
And so we always were into music. Even his brothers and sisters used to love other types of music, like rock and roll, early rock and roll music and jazz music, etc. And then everybody in the family used to sing and play guitar or play piano or play something. And when I was young, I started to have some groups, and I started to compose very early, actually, like when I was maybe 13, 14, 15, on a guitar. And then I did some conservatories in here, Algeria, and then Algiers, and then Paris after.
Yes.
But I decided to be a musician, to go into a career, maybe around 18 or something like that, because the choice was difficult. It's not an easy way to, you don't know how you're going to make it.
Yes,
actually.
yes.
It's
Most parents, most of the time, don't encourage their kids to...
On top of it.
Yes,
on top of it.
Yes.
And I also maybe wanted to be a pilot.
Yes.
I think at one point I hesitated a bit and said, let's be a pilot, because I'm sure to have proper job and whatever. So I was, because I used to love that. But I decided actually to choose music, the most difficult choice, and it worked. And actually now I'm a pilot, because I went back to it very late, like 3 years ago or something. So now I can fly small planes and whatever.
That's wonderful, like Beechcraft and so on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great, fantastic.
Yeah.
Safi Boutella, you carried your musical studies in the United States at Berkeley University, which means that you went really deeply into the studies of music. What were your influences? What are the influences that you got from studying in the United States? Jazz, I suppose?
Yes, jazz and also classical, because there you can find, especially in that school, Boston School of Music, College of Music, you could have courses on, many fields, like classical music, film composing, arranging, so many things, and so many concerts in the town, and so my influences were from everywhere, from my parents, from my country, my own country, and then from the States and from France, and my ears were wide open, actually.
So when you were freshly graduated, that young, freshly graduated musician, what were your projects at that time?
I didn't want to stay in the United States.
Why?
Because I could stay and teach. That's what I was actually asked for, and I didn't want to, because I wanted to run back to Algeria, and I don't know.
You wanted to do something here in Algeria?
Yes, because that was the place to do things for me the most urgently, and not in the States. In America they have enough composers and
everything
enough
has been nearly done.
And yes, even though, but I adore my country. We have to know that, and I adore my people, and I adore especially the kids and the youth. I want to give them whatever I have. So that's what I wanted to do. I went back.
Yes. Safi Boutella. At the beginning of your career, you formed bands and bands with artists from different parts of the world, and you got that influence. How could you introduce the Algerian music in your compositions and within a band?
Actually, I didn't start with bands. I started with, I had a strategy in my mind.
Yes.
I knew that if I started with bands, it would be difficult because my music was not that commercial. So I decided to work with the cinema industry, with the movies, music for films, and then that gave me the opportunity to experiment things. And also, I don't know how you say, but it's worth it. I mean, you work on,
Yes.
film music, you can earn some money and then do what you like
Kind
besides.
of financial independence in a way.
Yes, exact.
Yes.
And then I started to make bands, or my own bands,
Yes.
with people from everywhere. And I started slowly to introduce Algerian music into that jazz and classical way of making it at that time. It came slow by slow, but it came. Because all musics actually can fit together. You can marry, like you can marry a French girl or whatever. You can marry musics, whatever musics. You can find the way. But you have to have a good taste. That's, I think, the most important quality. Because a lot of people try to do that, to mix musics. The way was not the best choice.
There's even that world music trend that has inundated the world with that kind of attempt to mix music coming from...
I don't know. I liked my way to do it. I did it most of the time very delicately. It was for me very important to respect whatever I was doing. So each choice was the best for me.
Here in Algeria, we have different styles of music. We have the traditional Shabi Andalusian music. We have music coming and tunes coming from the eastern part, from the southern part of the country, kind of Tindi, from Janet, from many parts. And in the western part, we have Rai music. When it was about composing, how did it come to you? Do you choose a certain style, or it just comes to you?
I don't know. When I worked on Rai music, it was an idea with Colonel Snoussi by that time.
At that time, he was at the head of Riyad al-Fath or Oref Center here in Upper Algiers.
Exact.
It was in 1986, and when you produced the well-known album Kutshe with Khaled, Shab Khaled at that time.
By that time, people didn't like the idea. Because, the consumers of Rai music, traditional Rai music by that time, thought I was going to destroy Rai music or make it too clean,
Even Rai music was not well considered. It wasn't broadcast on public radios at that time.
On top of it, yes, on top of it.
Yes.
So I decided to, with the Colonel Snoussi and Khaled, to work on an album. Even though people were scared, it worked, actually. And
it did, yes.
When it went out, not all the people liked it. A lot of people say, wow, it's too clean, this is not Rai anymore, this is not Rai music anymore. But after a while, it became the reference of Rai music worldwide. So then, since that time, they thank me. And yes, they've been thankful, and I'm very happy of that, because I was very proud of doing that record. I was very happy doing it. I was very happy getting close to a different community than mine. We were not the same type of people. Khaled is a kind of person. He likes kind of things. He lives with in a particular way, and I live in another particular way also. We don't have the same, let's say, culture or cultural habits and whatever. And I decided to go.
And everybody was at that time saying that it won't work.
Yes, it
People
won't work.
used to say you are too different to be able to do something together.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I went actually there and I stayed, I think, like a month or whatever. I was sleeping at Khalid's and we were every night in cabarets, which I was not used to, you know, like staying awake until 7 or 8 in the morning. That was not my stuff. I mean. But I did it, and I remember that when I was going back home after, I found myself crying, really crying.
Really? Why?
Yes, crying, because it was emotionally very touching for me. I was very sensitive, and I was very happy that I could have the reflex to go to a community, to get inside.
An immersion.
In immersion, because after every night, mostly when you finish at 7 a.m., you're very, fragile, maybe vulnerable or whatever. And that's when you feel the most profound feelings, And at that time, I was saying to myself, you're not only doing something to this singer, you're not only doing something to this kind of music, Rai music, you are actually doing something for the country. I was feeling it like something for the country. I was aware that I was doing something serious.
Tradition here in Algeria is quite oral. Like in the rest of Africa, we don't have that tradition to write down our musical traditions, maybe because you are one of the first with your academic background be able to make it concrete. Don't you think so?
Most more my conscience.
Right.
My conscience. The serious aspect of my conscience.
Because when
I could have been the one that knows